Science tells us dragons never existed. But then, why do civilizations on opposite sides of the world describe the same creature? They had never met. They shared no stories. Yet they all spoke of wings, clouds, and giant reptiles. Today, we take a closer look at the dark realities behind the dragon myth and what humans may have truly seen. One of the biggest mysteries in history is why dragons appear in almost every culture. If you look at ancient Greece, China, or even the Americas, you will find dragons. But how? These people lived in different worlds and never talked to each other. Scientists have a few very interesting answers for this. First, let's talk about our brains. Some experts believe in the genetic ghost theory. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors were not at the top of the food chain. They were afraid of three main predators: snakes, eagles, and big cats like lions. Snakes have scales, eagles have wings, and big cats have sharp teeth and claws. If you combine these three fears into one monster, what do you get? You get a dragon. So, some scientists think the dragon is not a real animal, but a map of fear hidden inside our DNA. We did not see dragons. We just imagined the ultimate predator to keep ourselves safe. The second reason is even more exciting. Ancient fossils. Imagine you are a farmer 2000 years ago. You are digging a hole and suddenly you find a massive skull. It has huge teeth and looks like a giant lizard. You don't know what a Tyrannosaurus Rex is because the word dinosaur was not invented yet. What would you think? You would probably think, I found the bones of a dragon. In ancient China, people found dinosaurs fossils all the time. They did not call them dinosaurs. They called them dragon bones. They even ground these bones into powder to use as medicine. In Europe, people found the skulls of woolly rhinoceroses or giant whales and thought they were proof of dragon legends. So, dragons might be a mix of two things: our natural fear of predators and the mysterious bones we found in the ground. We took the remains of the past and gave them a name. But if they were just bones, why do we think they could breathe fire or fly? That is where the science gets even crazier. If you look at the dragon from England and a dragon from China, you will see two very different creatures, even though they have the same name. They tell very different stories. This part of the mystery shows us how our culture changed the way we see monsters. Let's start with the Western dragon. In European stories, dragons are usually the bad guys. They are depicted as giant, heavy lizards with huge wings, like a bat. They live in dark caves or deep underground, and they have one obsession: guarding pills of gold. In these myths, the dragon represents greed and danger. If you are a hero in a Western story, your goal is to find the dragon's cave, fight the beast, and kill it. Think about the story of Saint George or the dragons in The Hobbit. Here, the dragon is a monster that must be destroyed to save the world. Now, let's travel to the east, to places like China, Korea, and Japan. The Eastern dragon is completely different. First of all, they don't look like heavy lizards. They look like long, elegant snakes with the scales of a carp and the antlers of a deer. Usually, they don't even have wings, but they can still fly through the clouds using magic. Most importantly, they are not evil. In the East, dragons are like gods or spirits of nature. They don't breathe fire. They control the rain and the rivers. For ancient farmers, seeing a dragon in the sky was a sign of good luck and great harvest. Why are they so different? Historians think it because of how people viewed the world. In the West, nature was something dangerous that humans had to defeat. In the East, people wanted to live in harmony with nature. One culture saw a monster to be killed, and the other saw a protector to be worshipped. This shows that dragons are more than just animals. They are symbols of our beliefs. But no matter where they come from, there is one question that everyone asks. Could a creature that big actually fly? When we see a dragon in a movie, the first thing we think is, that looks like a dinosaur. And you are right. Both have scales, sharp teeth, and long tails. But did dragons and dinosaurs actually live together? The short answer is no. Dinosaurs died out 66 million years ago, and humans appeared much later. However, the connection between them is very real. For thousands of years, people find the dinosaur bones in the ground without knowing what they were. Imagine finding the skeleton of a Spinosaurus or a T-Rex in the year 500. It has a giant head and arms with claws. You would immediately think it was a dragon. In fact, many historians believe that dragon legends were born because of these fossils. People saw the physical proof of giant reptiles, and their imagination did the rest. They added wings and fire because they could not explain how such a giant creature could be defeated by a normal human. But there is another scientific reason why they look so similar. Convergent evolution. This is a fancy way of saying that nature often uses the name design for different animals. If you want to be a powerful predator on land, you need strong legs, a thick skin for protection, and a long tail for balance. This is why a dragon looks like a mix of a crocodile, a monitor lizard, and a dinosaur. Evolution creates these shapes because they work perfectly for survival. Even the wings of a dragon have a story. Most dragons are drawn with a bat wings instead of bird wings. Why? Because ladder-like wings look more reptilian and scary. In the past, people also found fossils of pterosaurs, giant flying reptiles. These creatures were real, and some were as big as a small airplane. When ancient people found these flying reptile bones, the idea of a flying dragon became a fact in their minds. So, dragons might be mental dinosaurs. We took the bones of the past and the animals of the present to create the ultimate legendary beasts. But if dragons were real dinosaurs, could they actually stay in the air? In the next part, we will look at the physics of flight and why a real dragon might have a very hard time leaving the ground. In movies, giant dragons, like the ones in Game of Thrones, fly easily through the sky. But if we look at the laws of physics, a real dragon would have a very big problem. To understand why, we need to talk about scientific rule called the square cube law. This rule is simple. If you make an animal 2 times taller, it becomes 4 times stronger, but it also becomes 8 times heavier. This is a disaster for flying creatures. As an animal gets bigger, its weight increases much faster than its muscle power. A dragon the size of a bus would weigh several tons. To lift that weight, its wings would need to be absolutely massive, maybe the size of a football field. Also, the dragon would need a heart as big as a car just to pump enough blood to those giant wings muscle. However, there was a real animal in history that was almost as big as a dragon, the Quetzalcoatlus. This was a flying reptile from the time of the dinosaurs. It was as tall as a giraffe, and its wingspan was 10 meters wide. How did it fly? Scientists found that it had hollow bones, like a bird, to stay light. Its body was mostly air, but dragons are usually shown as heavy creatures with thick scales and big bellies. A heavy, armored dragon would be too heavy to even jump off the ground, let alone fly. There is another problem: oxygen. Thousands of years ago, the Earth's atmosphere was different. If the air was denser or had more oxygen, it would be easier for a large animal to stay in the air. But in today's world, a real dragon would be stuck on the ground. So, if dragons were real, they would probably look more like giant crocodiles than flying birds. They would be powerful, but they would stay on the land. But wait, if they could not fly, what about their most famous weapon? How could an animal breathe fire without burning itself? In the next part, we will look at the amazing chemistry behind the biological flamethrower. The most famous thing about the dragon is its fire breath. At first, this sounds impossible. No animal on Earth can breathe fire, right? Well, not exactly. If we look closely at nature, we find that the chemistry for fire is already there. First, Let's look at a tiny hero called the bombardier beetle. This beetle has a secret weapon. Inside its body, it has two separate tanks filled with different chemicals. When the beetle is in danger, it mixes these chemicals together. The results of a boiling hot, stinky liquid that it shoots at its enemies. The liquid is 100 degrees Celsius. If a tiny bug can create a chemical explosion inside its body, why could not a giant dragon? So, how would a dragon do it? It will need three things: fuel, oxygen, and a spark. For fuel, a dragon could use methane. Many animals, including cows and humans, produce methane gas in their stomachs when they dig as food. A dragon could store this gas in a special organ. But how do you light the gas? This is the clever part. Some scientists suggest that dragon could eat rocks containing a mineral called pyrite, also known as fool's gold. When you rub pyrite against another rock, or even a dragon's own teeth, it creates sparks. Imagine a dragon grinding its teeth to create a spark, then realizing it's methane gas. Boom! You have a biological flamethrower. To protect itself from the heat, the dragon would need a special lining in its mouth and throat, similar to the scales on its body. So, while we have not found a fire-breathing animal yet, the biology is actually possible. It's just mix of gas, minerals, and very strong stomach. But if nature did not create a dragon in the past, could humans create one in the future? In our final part, we will look at the world of genetic engineering and see if we can actually build a real dragon in a lab. We have looked at history, physics, and chemistry. We know that dragons probably did not exist in the past. But what about the future? Today, we have a technology called CRISPR. This tool allows scientists to edit DNA, which is the interaction manual for life. With this technology, the idea of creating a dragon is not as crazy as it sounds. Actually, some scientists are already working on something similar. There is a project called the Chickenosaurus. Researchers are trying to change the DNA of a chicken to bring back its dinosaur features. They want to give it teeth, a long tail, and even claws. Science birds are the descendants of dinosaurs. The dragon DNA is already hidden inside them. To build a real dragon, we will need to combine different animals. We could take the body of a large monitor lizard, the wings of a bat, and the chemical glands of a bombardier beetle. Then, using genetic engineering, we could try to put them all together. Imagine a creature that looks like a reptile, flies like a bird, and creates chemical heat. But there is a big question. Should we do it? Just like in the movie Jurassic Park, creating a prehistoric or mythical monster could be very dangerous. A dragon would be an invasive species. It would have no natural enemies and could destroy our environment. Also, would it be a pet, or would it be a living weapon? The ethics of science are just as important as the technology itself. So, were dragons real? In the past, they were real in our minds and our stories. They were a way for our ancestors to explain the scary world around them. Today, they are still real in our movies and books. But tomorrow, they might be real in a laboratory. Perhaps the dragon is not a creature of the past, but a creature of our future. Whether they are made of fire and magic or DNA and science, dragons will always be the kings of our imagination. What do you think? If science could create a real dragon, would you want to see one? Let me know in the comments. We've reached the end of our story. I'll leave you with the music.